Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for coming along tonight. Thank you for braving storm, tempest, tube strikes, traffic jams, whatever. The Plague of Frogs arrives tomorrow, but it's tremendous to see so many of you here, and why not? Because this is a special night, yet another opportunity for us to sit and listen to a conversation with a great filmmaker, Academy Award nominee and BAFTA nominee. So without further ado, please welcome tonight's question master, one of our most distinguished members, Mike Figgis and David O. Russell.
Thank you, Mr. Figgis. Thank you all for coming out to talk. I appreciate it. Especially the sneakers, although you guys call them trainers, right?
That was just for you, David. So I have a list of questions, David, which we'll kind of deal with and then go where we want to with this. And the first one is, when did you know you wanted to be a director, and how did you actually become a director? Because I know one of the things, we share this in common, we came late to the biz. What did you do in the bit between, and why did you want to be a director and all that? Just give it a history there.
I think I had always really lived in and saturated myself with movies, and would live in them in my head for months at a time, although I didn't consider that something that was officially, for whatever reason, something I was supposed to do. So I was always a writer. My dad was a book salesman. He was a working class guy who worked as a Simon & Schuster, a publisher, and became a book salesman. He met my mother there, who was a secretary at Simon & Schuster. So there was a Brooklyn girl and a Manhattan guy, and they got married, and we always had a lot of books in our house. So books were a very important thing in our house. And my dad really wasn't in the literary part of it, like he wasn't an editor. That was considered like the higher brow part of it. So that was sort of just beyond, but we were sort of close to that. So that was very exciting to me, to think of the writers. It was very, and literature was just very important in our house, all the books that were around. And I don't know. So I was always a writer. And then my mom was the one who got me, it was like the heroin dealer of, a bad joke for this week. My mom was kind of, my mom was the purveyor of cinema. My dad never took me out anywhere to do anything, because he was like a typical dad of that generation. A lot of them. They just worked and came home and were like, leave me alone. I'm much closer to him now. God bless him, he's 85. But my mom, God rest her soul, said to him, you go out and you buy David a bed. He needed a new bed. I was like 7 years old. And you guys do that together. That's like a thing you do together. And as soon as we get out of the house, my dad goes, so look, we can go buy you a bed, or we can go to the movies. And I said, let's go to the movies. So it was like a no-brainer to me. I didn't realize you could make choices like that. Just like I didn't realize you could do cinema as a career. Yeah. So I took me. Anyway, so the movie he took me to, weirdly, was a Matt Helm movie. Do you remember those movies?
Yeah.
With Anne Margaret, and Dean Martin, the Murderer's Row, and the screen comes up and it's like 30 women in bikinis. And I think I short-circuited my entire brain, my entire 7-year-old brain. I was just completely gaga from that. I'd never seen that many women in Technicolor and bikinis. And as somebody once said, like as cheerleaders, and I realize I'm probably rambling horribly, but I can't stop now. I'm too invested. So I'm going to finish the script for this. Cheerleaders, one at a time. It's like a mall girl from New Jersey, but en masse, it achieved some greater sum of mass of nuclear power. So here were all these Vegas women in bikinis that were blowing my mind. And we left the theater and we're walking down the street, and I was in a complete daze, and I walked full clip into a telephone pole that laid me out. And I remember my father, like a feeling, going, oh my God, are you okay? And don't tell your mother I took you to the movies, and maybe we can still get and buy a bed, So that didn't really answer your question, but so I was always a writer. I went to college, I was the first person in my family to go to a real college. My dad went to the city college, but didn't really finish. My mom didn't finish, and So I was like, that was a big deal. So I did that, and again, all literature, politics.
Mm.
I don't know why, and somehow, if I could go back now, I'd say, just don't bother with that. It's a pain in the ass. Don't do that. But actually, I would recommend it because you know why? My life wasn't just film. I had great interest in history and people living and dying, and I was very passionate about it. Always very passionate, So
what books were you reading? Who did you love?
Well, I'm afraid they're a little predictable. I don't have that, and that's how my films are. They're accessible and not pretentious. I'm not going to name some obscure Russian writer, as much as I would like to impress everybody. It was pretty much the bread and butter stuff of, I did love Charles Dickens. I loved Great Expectations. I did love Somerset Maugham of Human Bondage. I mean, that's good shit. He's obsessed with that waitress. He's got a club foot, I mean, that's just basic movie shit, like he's in love with a waitress and she just breaks him like a dry stick, I mean, bad obsessive love affair. I haven't thought about that book in a long time. I also read, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn was like a big thing to me, and that's a cliche. Sorry, I think the cliche is not true in cinema or life if it's real. So to me it was real. I mean, I had this whole thing about, oh my God, when they're on the river, it's magical and amazing. And then as soon as they step on shore, there's just terrible things happen, which tells you that civilization is a terrible thing, which was a great lesson I got from that. And my teacher said, I can't grade this till you tell me where you copied this from. I said, I made that up. I didn't copy it from anywhere, that thing about the river. She didn't believe me. So,
any Americans? I mean, obviously.
Well, Mark Twain's an American. I was a big Scott Fitzgerald, big Hemingway for a while. I'm sorry to be traditional. Read some Joan Didion at the time, some Doris Lessing, tried hard. And because I thought I should read that. And I also read J.D. Salinger. And that documentary is very interesting, if you haven't seen it.
Is it?
Did you see it?
No, not yet.
It's very interesting, the documentary on him. As is the Eagles documentary, unless you look down on the Eagles. See, I would never look down on the Eagles. See, when we were all to the Sex Pistols and the Clash, you weren't supposed to look at the Eagles. You were supposed to take a shit on the Eagles. It was like the Eagles, the super bands. And I still meet people, some of them from England, by the way, who still, it's like being part of Al-Qaeda or something, like they still have to believe that. And I'm like, no, I think you can like, both the Sex Pistols and the Eagles. It's not like, I'm not 19 anymore, I can actually love both musics. But the documentary about the Eagles is brilliant because they describe writing, which is again what this is about. And we'll loop back to cinema and writing. So they asked him, Bob Seger said to them, they were playing everybody else's music, and he said, you got to write your own songs. And they said, we don't know how to do that, we're really scared to do that. And, I was terrified to write my own movies, it's terrifying, And this is the answer to what happened to me. So Don Henley goes, but we're just afraid, that they'll be bad. And Bob Seger goes, they will be bad. They'll be really, really bad. They'll suck. And then finally you'll write one that doesn't suck. And I remember listening to Jackson Browne, who rented a house upstairs from them, and every fucking day he'd go up and put on the tea kettle and write that song. Remember that first hit, Doctor My Eyes Have? Every day, all day. And they listened to that, and they were like, listen to that guy. It was like dead craftsmanship, dedication, like sweat labor, He built it from blood, And so I learned from that, just from writing and rewriting and writing and rewriting, and I eventually tried to write movies. I had many. I'll give you the boring answer, which is you think you already have, but I'll give you a second boring answer. So the second boring answer is that. I was the political guy. I was interested in people, which did serve cinema, because I was always really into real gritty people. Like the people my parents were like, no, go away from those people. We wanted you to go away from those people. That's like all our relatives, like all my relatives, were people who work at airports and work construction and were butchers and mechanics, and some of them, like a teacher might be one of them. But I was going and living in these communities throughout the United States and teaching reading and writing to grown-ups who couldn't read and write, and teaching Latin American immigrant stuff and trying to get better housing done. And I was very much into George Orwell. There's another writer that I liked. I was into that whole romantic thing of John Reed and Reds. I went to Central America again. If anybody out there thinks I'm a cliche, spend a little more time to me, and hopefully it doesn't confirm that I'm a cliche. But so. Then I still haven't gotten to filmmaking. My first thing was
we can take our time to get
all that stuff with those people was very useful because you get to go into all these homes, and I was just always. You have to be a fantastic voyeur to make the kind of cinema that I want to make. I'm never going to make a movie. God bless all these other movies because I love them. There's many cinemas. There are many cinemas. God bless them, and many great filmmakers. I'm never going to make a movie, about a tiger on a raft or any of that stuff. That's just. I'm going to make the movie about the people. So I got to go, I'm just always perversely voyeuristic and fascinated by people. So I like to go into all these homes, and you could pick up so much stuff. It was fascinating to me, from everything, every single detail about
Did you find at any point that was perverse? Diane Arbus has that great quote about taking photographs, about saying you hit the line of perversity, either you're prepared to cross that line, or you're not, and the difference between something that's more interesting may be the ability to cross that line, regardless of how it makes you feel. Were you aware of any kind of line that you needed to cross to get close to stories and to situations?
Yeah, that happened with a film. You tell me if this sounds like it might have been perverse, called Spanking the Monkey.
Yes.
So, every time I hear that title now, I kind of cringe. Every time, they're like, and his first film, Spanking the Monkey, and people always laugh. Anyway, so, here's what happened. So I basically was living and working as a bartender and a waiter, and writing. I made a short film that Quentin Tarantino's editor, who died tragically, was the producer of. She and these NYU film students who had been to film school and did know how to make movies helped me. I begged them to help me, and they treated me like a bitch because I was I didn't know anything, all right? And they treated me very disrespectfully, as I deserved. It was like a fraternity hazing, okay? Because I didn't know anything. But after I went through that with my first film that then went to Sundance, which was about a bingo parlor I had run in a working class community in Maine, where there were this factory town in the state of Maine. I ran a bingo parlor that supported this community organization that improved the housing and shut down all these slums. And that was bizarre, the bingo parlor, the whole thing. So I made a film about that. I had no clue what I'm doing, none. And the film shows it, even though I got to go to Sundance, which was my whole dream. And I met my wife there, and then had a kid that became bipolar that I made a movie about called Silver Linings Playbook. So it did result in that production. And the production called The Divorce, but it did not result in another motion picture. So I came home from that. I had my dream. Your parents were like, "What the fuck are you doing? We sent you to college. You're still paying for college. You still have loans from college." And you're like, "Well, there's this thing, Sundance, and it sounds like it's a con. It sounds like an elaborate con to them, and it kind of is." They're like, "Sundance, okay, what is this? What is happening?" So then I made another short film that, again, borrowing money, that this time I made sure I did every single thing myself. Because the humiliating process of working with all those NYU film students, I was like, I'm going to do it all myself.
Everything shot it.
Every single thing. I walked 60 blocks. It took place in a beauty parlor. It was the fantasy of a woman under a bonnet, and it was a really kind of twisted thing. And Bill Hickey, the guy from Prizzi's Honor, the man who talks like this in Prizzi's Honor. Does anybody remember him? Yeah. I mean, that was my big get. If I could get him, and I got him. And I
have another cookie, that guy.
Yes.
You want another cookie?
Have another cookie.
Yeah.
And so he was my big get. He was in it with this woman that I put in these short films. And he taught me a lot about comedy just by listening to him. He was such a character. He was looking at a newspaper on the set, on the table, and between shots, and said, "Oh, I see, today would have been Hitler's 100th birthday." Well, we celebrated on our block. And I just was in awe of that. I thought I would never think of saying something like that, and I was going to spend the next 10 years trying to become the person who would think of saying things like that, So I made the second short, every single thing I did myself. That was a better short. I'd already had jobs as a PA.
What did you shoot on, by the way?
16 millimeter.
Okay. So you
some
cut it on
black
a
and white and
Steenbeck?
color. Cut it on a Steenbeck with my girlfriend, who had been an editor at a documentary show that I worked at, hosted by historian David McCullough. about the Smithsonian Institute.
Did you teach yourself the Steenbeck? I mean, it's a 10-minute job, I know, but...
I mean, yeah, you got to learn how to work the Steenbeck, you know, yeah. So you learn how to work and she worked at CBS, cutting for a documentary, so we go and use it at night.
Yeah, yeah.
When like from 10 to like 6 in the morning, you know, when no one was there. So I then got a National Endowment for the Arts grant. I hope that still exists. I don't think it does. When I got that fat envelope under my door, it was one of the greatest days of my life. They gave me $20,000, and New York State gave me $20,000 to make a short that eventually became Huckabees in a way. It was about, again, here's voyeurism. A man who put microphones like this one on every table in a Chinese restaurant hidden and sat in the back. It was a Chinese restaurant he worked at, and listened to every personal conversation on every channel. So imagine listening to your conversation and then your conversation. And then he would write like a perversely or inappropriately or intimately personal fortune that he would then put in the cookie. So you open a cookie and it's like, you know, don't get divorced, first think about your mistress and maybe think about that car debt. And people would be like, what the fuck? You know, and so, you know, and he ended up, you know, getting involved, and it's eventually, you know, he eventually got involved with some of these people because somebody was like, what the fuck are you doing, you know? So I didn't want to make another short film, though, because I'd already, I said, I can't, I'm like, you know, I was like, I was in my early 30s, and I said, you know, I got it. You know, people had cars. I was living in like a studio apartment about as big as this area, I said, so I got to make a feature film. So I said, I'm going to write this into a feature. So I spent like 2 years. It's painful to think about it, unless I think of it as a learning experience. With my jobs, rewriting it 20 different ways, which is an interesting lesson because you can write a movie 20 different ways. So I wrote it many, many different ways. None of them were probably the best way, or the movie that was meant to be. I do believe you make the movie that is meant to be. You know, I wanted to make Silver Linings Playbook after Sidney Pollack got me to write it, but I could not get it made until after The Fighter. I couldn't get it made. So I said, I'm going to write this into a feature. It didn't work. I went on jury duty, and on jury duty I'd broken up with the girlfriend with the Steenbeck and CBS. We had a really nasty breakup, and I was very angry and unhappy and broke and gnarly and cursing life. And on jury duty, sitting in a, you get to read the New York Post all day, and you get rejected from every jury. So you end up you're rejected because every time they go, you know, do you have any opinions about drugs? And, you know, you say, yes, I think, you know, marijuana should be legal. They go, get out. and so you never get picked. So they keep sending you to this other room. And so you sit in this room and read the New York Post, but you have a reason that's really good for a writer because you're forced to sit there. You can't go anywhere. You can't watch TV. And you can't masturbate. You gotta just sit there. So it's a little bit like a Zen retreat, which is what a writer's supposed to do, right? Not that writers ever distract themselves by doing any of those things. I mean, every writer I know does all those things. They watch TV, they surf the internet, they masturbate, anything but write. Okay, so because writing, you know, is very hard, you know, and boring and lonely, and you know, and the day's passing, and as the day passes, the pressure's increasing, and you're not getting it done. It just gets worse. So I came up with this perverse, here finally, and we're done, we're all out of time. Thank you, David. Thank you all for coming out. Perverse fantasy based on a summer when my mother had smashed up her car while she had been drinking, and my dad was traveling, and I had to kind of take care of her and come back home, and it was like this weird environment. And I pushed it hard. You know, I pushed it out into perverse land, right? I allowed myself to have those thoughts. That's to cross that line. And the person who allowed me to have those thoughts was Gus Van Sant. Because when I saw his movie called Malinoche, he was a hero to me because of a movie called Drugstore Cowboy, which is, I think, a flawless film. And I went and saw his first film, Malinoche, which is about a kind of a weird middle-aged guy like you or me that is obsessed with and in love with a Mexican busboy. And I remember watching it thinking, holy shit, I can't believe he made this movie. Which now, of course, today, like war, it's like nothing. You know, like when I made the war movie, it was like, no, you made a movie about a Middle East war? That was the only Middle East war at that time, you know, and then we had like 20 more. Right? So the same thing with the busboys. That's nothing. There's 20 YouTube movies about that. But at the time, it was a very big deal to me. And so then I allowed myself to do what you said, to cross over into the perverse, which is, of course, when things get very interesting. You know, because you start breaking rules and you start getting real about what's really going on in everybody, which is an opera, a great opera of Guignol, you know, is that how you pronounce it? That's how I pronounce it. Grand Guignol.
Guignol.
Guignol Opera is it? So then I did that picture. That ended up getting me out of my day job. I got a screenwriting job with Dolly Parton, was my first job, and I got to, we won the Sundance Audience Award. I just was happy to go. And I discovered that without realizing it, that I couldn't help making even the most perverse, sad situations funny, which I did not know about myself.
When you, let's say, you wrote Spanking the Monkey, and finally, you know, it's the first day of the shoot, up to the last day of the shoot, is your vision pretty much intact from day one to wrap? Or are you making adjustments as you go? Or do you feel that in the concept and the kind of construction of it is done, and now it's the business of turning, the laborious business of turning this into a cinematic drama?
That one was pretty nailed down. You know, it was like two people in a house, and we had like 23 days to do it, and I was just lucky if I could film it or figure out how to film it. You know, so there are always these arguments or discussions with the actors. You know, well, I would never do that the way you wrote that. Really, how come? I like having those arguments now because I'll go, okay, really? I'm going to tell you, okay, there's 10 more reasons why you would never do it that way. I'm going to give you 10 reasons why you would do it that way. Okay? Now, who's right? I don't know. Maybe we have to do one of each because I really don't know. You can't say your way is more right, you know, and I can't say my way is more right, but they both hold up, you know. So we did that picture, 23 days. It didn't move so much. I can't remember the things that changed. I mean, I always wanted to do something. There was stuff I wanted to do, but I didn't have the time or the confidence. We shot it in 35 short ends. Anybody here know what short end? Anybody under the age of 30 know what short ends are? If you're under 30, I'm under 30. How old are you?
29.
39, 29? 29? Okay, what's a short end?
It's when you film like 35 or 16 mil, you get the rolls, and then if you cut, you've got like 10, 15, 20 feet left at the day. Not enough to use for the day. They just go on the side of the short end, and then you carry on with a new roll because you want the full thing.
Thanks. Very good. So I'll tell you, it makes filming more adventurous. It's already adventurous because the director's never made a feature. The crew is not getting paid and they want to kill you, you know, because they're not getting paid. And the mood of the movie, incest, not really fun. So it's like every day you're like, that's the guy responsible for putting us in this disgusting environment and not paying us. But they did get paid. I'm very happy to say we made deferred deals with them, and thanks to Sundance, they all got paid. I was very happy about that. The short ends mean so that you don't always know how all along the rolls are. So like it's like a kind of it's an exciting, you know, game of chance, like Russian roulette. Like this roll, who knows when it's going to roll out? You know, so you know, this could be an important scene. Oh, she finally did it. We ran out about 2 minutes ago. You know, so there's somewhere like they're all different lengths. So
I mean, when did you switch from film, or have you switched?
I never switched.
Are you still shooting on film?
Old-fashioned guy. Yeah.
Wow.
Maybe that's perverse.
Yeah.
I'm superstitious. I don't know. I'm told that there is a difference in the transfer of film to digital that is not exactly duplicated if you just shoot digital.
Going back on the set, if you have a crew,
I'm told the world just keeps going. It's flat like that. Yes.
Dealing with lots and lots of people, at the point having been the writer and then becoming the director, where you have actors who, of course, they always sort of say this amazing phrase, I don't know if I would do that, which always strikes me as odd because you're asking them to do something they wouldn't normally do anyway, you know, which is pretend to be somebody that they're not. So that's always odd. And then the crew, I am very aware of this perverse moment. If you do something a little bit freaky, there is this moment of like, ooh, you know, and often I feel the temptation to go, and maybe we should just move on from this a little bit, okay? But you know, it's planned, it's on the call sheet, and you have to do it, right? How do you deal with all of that? How do you deal with kind of making sure your vision does not get fucked up by an accumulation of other opinions? Because filmmaking is just full of opinion. Producers, you work with Harvey, you work with all kinds of interesting people.
You know, I would say the big thing for me, the worm really turned for me on the last 3 films. You know, and part of that's a function of age. Part of that's a function of having been down and out, to quote George Orwell. You know, I was down and out for about 8 years. You know, and you'll learn a lot from that.
You do.
And that'll make you a bad motherfucker when you come back. I mean, in terms of like clear, no nonsense. You know what I mean? Just like strong, humble. You know, versus the guy before that was also, they're both scared, both filmmakers, but the guy would just be more prone to try other strategies of dealing with the fear, which were more nonsense prone, you know. So what happened when I came back and made The Fighter or wrote Silver Linings is I just things were very clear, and you're very clear about what is great, and you're very excited about what you think is great. And it's great for everybody because you're so excited about it and you're so inspired about it, as opposed to I'm not sure. You know, I'm not sure is I think maybe the worst thing a director can do. Sometimes that's good. I'll say I won't be bullheaded about stuff. You know, I'll say I don't know. What do you think? Let's talk about it. If somebody really wants to talk about it, great. Let's talk about it. You know, and then we'll figure it out. But too much not sure is no good. You know, so it had to come from instinct. All the filmmaking from the last 3 films is from instinct. And don't spend too much time thinking about it or making it. Come from your gut, come from your heart, what you feel. That's how I woke up and you go, wow, I like romance. Who knew that? I didn't know that. I love romance. The last 3 films have romance in them, and now I'm finally going, yeah, I like romance. But it took me 3 films to really see that was who I was. Clearly, I love it. And I think I love what people live for, not just what they struggle through. You know, I love because I live for, if you said this is going to be it for you, you got to go through this miserable experience, and I could think of 3 things that would make it easier for me, I could probably think of 3 things, like a movie or a certain hamburger, maybe a person that I wanted to just look in their eyes, maybe have sex, but maybe just look in their eyes. So that's, everybody has that in their lives. And many people don't even know that till you take it away from them. They would say, oh, my life's crap. And then you go, oh, don't take that away. So that's, So I really love that stuff, that my relatives, that I realized it was right under my nose my whole life, that all my relatives had this thing that they were doing. They had meals they ate. They had TV shows they watched. They had songs they sang. They had a love for life, despite what happened, so... I don't know. That's what I decided that I love, and that's what I look for now. I don't want to. You can make a movie without that, but I'm not going to do a movie without that.
What is let's say, cinema is an extension of theatre. It's better, I think, than theatre because you can do more stuff in detail, and nuance is more accessible and so on. As you were kind of like. You went through college and then you were writing and then so on. Did you ever kind of look down and go, why do I want to do this? Why is this urge so strong in me? Why do I want to put myself out on the firing line in this way, particularly when you start making films? Did it ever occur to you, or it's not important?
At that early stage?
Then, or actually now?
Now it's 2 different perspectives. At the time, see, the political organizing thing isn't that different than being a filmmaker. You gotta have a vision, whether it's getting rid of some low-income housing or fixing it up or making a movie. You got to get a bunch of people to come together and talk about it in their free time, and you got to get them to help you do it, and to everybody give an opinion. And so back then, I saw it as kind of similar. I also saw it as my last best chance to have a job that might make me feel like I got to be creative, but also might have had a chance of making money. And I knew it was like going to a casino, but that was kind of what I thought. So now, however, I feel that it's a great privilege to do what we do. I see it as a craftsman and as a no-nonsense crafts job that I regard with great respect, just as a carpenter would. And I feel very grateful for the opportunity to try to do it the best I can, and I think that it could fail at any moment. I still think the landing strip is this narrow, no matter what, no matter what good movie you've made. Still, that's it. And the delusion that I saw myself and other people fall into is you start to think, you know what you're doing, and I think that's very dangerous. And I think it leads to bad movies, and I think it leads to bad life. So I just don't, I prefer to do my craft and always think that, gee, this could go wrong at any moment. So be very, very, very careful.
A lot of people here, I'm sure, would be really interested to know a little bit about your process and your craft, how you actually, because everyone has their own thing. How do you go about the making of the script, which is the most important thing, dialogue? And I know that your script is something that's very, very solid for you. It's not a particularly negotiable document. It's something that, here's the movie, now let's make it. So how do you arrive at something that you think, okay, now I'm happy with this? And a stupid question, do you type? Do you handwrite? Do you use ink? Use a pencil? How do you do it?
Is this the group that Paul Greengrass told me about? You guys like the directors union? It was you guys got no respect, according to Paul Greengrass, for a long time, and now you got this group together, right? And now he was very involved in that, right? Wasn't he? Did he make a film recently? Oh, no, it's a very good film he made. And I really like him. I love him. It's a sweetheart, though. So I write by hand on pads, and I dictate into a phone or a tape recorder, and I then get that transcribed. I will talk a scene. I'll tell you a story. I can walk around and talk a scene and act out a scene. And I'd rather do that because I'm tired of sitting alone in a room for 20 years. Mm-hmm. So I've reduced that to a clerical act. So by the time I'm there, by the time I touch something called final draft, just the name of it gives me the heebie-jeebies. Yeah. And if that doesn't stop you from writing something, I don't know what will. I don't even think I could do a first draft yet. I don't know. So you take the transcription, which might be a crude form of a scene. I'll do it by talking to you, mm-hmm. right? So by talking to you and talking to my actors and getting excited about it and telling it the scene and the character, maybe it's just a character. This is how I do it now. And then when you transcribe it to final draft, you can clean it up and make it better. And then you keep making it better. Mm. But I can take a pad with me anywhere, and I'll allow myself sometimes just to do a character run. Let's just do a character run. Let's not think about story. Let's just talk as this character talks. Say what you think is cool about this character. What is interesting about this character? What do I love about this character? Mm-hmm. What would I go, oh my God, this character. Mm-hmm. He's got a comb over, he's fat, he's from the Bronx, but he's got a wife, he's got beautiful young women, but how is that? He's charming, he's soulful. Mm-hmm. He's a soulful guy, and he loves his kid. He has a great taste in art. He loves art. He considers what he does in art, on and on and on and on. And Christian Bale says, wow, it's really like an actor, and it's really like a theater director, and it's really like anybody is really an actor or an artist. So we were interested in the bigger idea of how everybody is the composer, artist of their own lives. Mm-hmm. Just like I told you. And people say your 20s are the best time of your life. I thought they were the worst time of my life, because if you're lucky, if you're Brad Pitt, maybe, I don't, even he may not say that. Because for me, it was a whole lot of, you don't know. You haven't learned how to direct your life yet. You don't know how to shape it. It was a whole lot of not knowing, which is very uncomfortable. I think I answered your question.
Pencil or pen?
A Uniball Elite. This one. A Uniball Vision Elite. And the thing is, I don't like there to be a lot of resistance. I like it to kind of
That's great.
Like that. So you don't have to press on.
It's really good.
You like it? What do you use?
Fountain pen.
A fountain pen, that's nice.
Soft pen.
Like a fountain pen that has a cartridge in it?
I dip.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So there's a lot of great writers that do that. Mary Gordon did that for a while. Yeah. So you dip in the inkwell, and is that feels like a special ritual to you?
Well, you always get a big, nice, sexy black flow, so it's very bold, and then I have a lot of different pens. If I want to get really finicky, I use a very fine nib, if I'm feeling anal, otherwise if it's flowing, you just want, to get it to go quickly. Do you talk your dialogue through? Do you, with yourself?
I do it on tape or to a friend,
Yeah.
or to an actor. Do you?
Yeah, I think you have to. And it's interesting, then when you see it in print, then you edit again because it seems long-winded, but yeah. TV drama. Now more alluring than it was.
Oh, by the way, the script will. I mean, I know what I love in the script. The script can keep. There's been a. I'll keep writing sometimes. I'll rewrite something on the day.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if Jennifer Lawrence's character is supposed to hang herself, and I was so excited because it was so dark and horrible, and I was like, this is going to be fantastic. She's going to hang herself. And as you're approaching the day, all your little instincts are going, that's not a good idea. That's just maybe not a good idea. And the producers are going, but what are we doing? Just take it easy, hold on. We're going to prepare for the hanging thing. Just prepare the hanging thing. Do we put the hook here, near the dining room table, or over here? Yeah, that's good. And then you feel like you write what may be one of the good scenes in the movie is when, what a wonderful confrontation. Her character, because I went more towards what her character had to live for, which, I've known people who have hung themselves. I know people who have tried to hang themselves. Okay, that can be interesting. In one of my movies, that kid tries to hang himself in Spanking the Monkey. So, but it's also can be interesting if you find a reason to live that is, how people do that is always endlessly fascinating. You fall in love with the gangster that you met through your husband, and the gangster's now threatening your husband, and you say, but I meet everybody through you, so, just be happy for me. You unloaded me, so that becomes a nice thing. So television, I think television has become amazing. You guys have led the way on that for a very long time, going back to An Inspector Calls, to the Helen Mirren thing, to what is that thing? What was that thing? That amazing thing? Dennis
Potter.
All that stuff.
Singing Detective.
That's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
I was so jealous of that. That was such a great idea.
Yeah.
That show. And so some television in America is that good. And I tried to make a TV. See, TV things happen when they're supposed to happen. Yeah. So I tried to make this show 15 years ago, and it was like, I don't know. I mean, it's just ridiculous. People say to me, do you want to do TV? I go, yeah, just show me. Go ahead. I had a show last year. I think it's like a Chinese box. People think, oh, you can do anything. No, you can't. No. You cannot do anything. You can't. I mean, so I had Robert De Niro producing on a New Yorker profile of an amazing character, Don't Worry Murray, a defense attorney in the Bronx who defended wrongly accused criminals and gangsters and all kinds of people, and his daughter. Great, amazing characters. Robert De Niro producing, me directing. Danny Strong, who won the Emmy for a movie called Game Change about Sarah Palin, wrote it. How can we go wrong? We didn't even get a pilot. I got sent cufflinks by the network during Oscar season, and after that happened, I called them up. I said, do I have to give the cufflinks back? Do I need to give the cufflinks? Because I don't understand. You're not going to do the pilot now.
Do you think that? I mean, I loved what happened with The Wire and The Sopranos. I have the feeling that this sort of perception that, this massive focus of talent has now moved over to cable.
Do you do television? Have you done television?
I have dabbled. I did Soprano. And
why don't you do a whole series?
I'm thinking about it.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah. I mean, I love the idea, and I'm sure it appeals to you, the idea of long-form Dickensian storytelling.
Steven Soderbergh is now blazing this trail at Cinemax, which will no longer be the joke called Skinemax, because Steven Soderbergh is there, and he's doing a series about disease at the turn of the century and Typhoid Mary and all that, and so that he's going to blaze a trail over there for all you filmmakers out there who want to go knocking on Cinemax's door. And I wanted to, and I can't get that started either. But this other thing that ABC rears its head, so now I have to try to wrestle the beast into the boat, in a form that feels really good, Do
you have any thoughts about, the kind of conventional wisdoms about screenwriting, about the 3-act structure, and about, all of that
I'm a believer.
Did you know about it when you started?
No, I didn't. And when I would read that Sid Field book, I never went to McKee. I saw McKee in my friend's movie adaptation.
Yeah.
Bob McKee. I think Bob McKee is smart, But like anything, when you're learning, it's so different than doing. When you're sometimes you're learning, and all you can think about when you try to do is what you were learning, right? Then you can't do it. But I think that stuff, I do believe in a good old-fashioned narrative structure. I'd probably come by it organically, but I do believe in, I believe every scene should be like it might be my last scene ever. And every scene should be life and death stakes, which means even if it's a scene that is about something quiet, it can still be done in a way that's going to be much more interesting cinematically if I shoot it like it's life and death stakes. Even though everybody's going to feel like, wow, we're doing this like we're crazy people. But that's what makes it more alive. What about you? You did a movie that had 4 screens divided up into, like your sneakers, which I rushed out to see the very first weekend.
Well, it was interesting because you're forced into a completely different approach to narrative, and then it becomes a lot of fun because you have a lot of people potentially on 4 screens on 1 screen at the same time, so you can do all the crazy stuff, and it can be funny. Ultimately, I thought it was a comedy, Time Code. You know, it was a very funny, if somewhat dark story. You know,
I think you're very ahead of your time, and I think you should still do that in the sense that I bet if you did a series that was like that or as an internet thing, it would really become. You could be it's almost like a logarithm. You could be telling a story that was always had a pattern that started in this box and moved to this box, and people could watch different stories in different boxes, but it could become a footprint that happened again and again. I don't know.
I think I resisted.
You broke new ground, though. That was but maybe you invented the light bulb and then you didn't go back. And I mean, what if you kept using it? Has somebody else come and done that since you did that?
I think 24 sort of ripped off.
They ripped it off.
Yeah.
Well, they made a lot of money.
Yeah, they made a lot of money. And at the time, I thought, how stupid. You know, why didn't I think about money?
It's stupid. You know, because I did this thing with the bullet going in the body of Three Kings. You know, showing because the whole part of the reason I wanted to do the movie was a meditation on violence. And there was only 5 bullets in the whole movie in Three Kings, you know, or something like that. And so we did this thing. We did it practically. We got a dummy. You know, and they did a thing where the bullet goes through the inside of the organs, and you see what happens when it hits the spleen, and the spleen opens up. And then CSI took that idea and made a fortune from that all over the place.
We talk about Three Kings. There was a big, massive departure for you to do something with so much hardware and effects and massive amounts of technology in each scene, or in some of the major scenes. And you'd never done that before. Did you just want to do it? You wanted to make the film, obviously, but was the size of the technical size of it intimidating to you in any way?
Yeah, it was probably terrifying to me. But I wanted to work on a big canvas. I wanted to work on it with a studio. I'd worked with Miramax, you know. Now, you know, I have no such delusions.
Yeah.
But, you know, I want to be on a lot. You know, so I thought I'm going to make a grown-up movie, you know, with Warner Brothers. And I was going to make a big, muscular movie that had a lot in it. I wrote a movie that was a lot like There Will Be Blood. I researched the turn of the century and the advent of oil and the Industrial Revolution, and I thought, this is too ambitious. So instead I went and did this thing. And, you know, it was being ambitious visually, trying things, learning, being ambitious visually. I shot action. I'm proud of the action in that movie. I learned that I don't need to go do that again. I'm happy to be in a room with people talking, you know, or running down a street.
Did the amount of time it took, was that a frustration to you?
Oh boy, I learned a lot.
Did you?
I mean, that was really the source of some of that original tension on that movie, you know, because I felt so privileged to be making it, you know, because the head of the guy at the studio, Lorenzo di Bonaventura, risked his job on 2 films, The Matrix and Three Kings. And fortunately, they both came through pretty good for him. But I promised him I wasn't going to go a day over schedule. Like, I personally, like in my blood.
You believed it?
I did believe it. And they had already made it that it was 10 days shorter than it needed to be, which is how they do business. It's 10 days shorter, and then you figure you're going to get to where that you want to be. Right? I didn't know that, so I just was suffering. It was horrible to me. I bled every one of those days. So the very first day, the cinematographer, Tom Siegel, has this big crane arm on a truck that I had no interest in. It was like he wanted to do that. I was like, fine. Okay, so he did this thing on his arm, and the arm would never work. Right?
Was this the shot of them walking? At the
No, it's George Clooney, it's everybody. Spike Jonze, Mark Wahlberg, George Clooney, Ice Cube in the Humvee, and it was this, there's some cool shots of them driving along in the Humvee. But the arm didn't work, and it just didn't work, and it didn't work, and I just was like, my brain was melting inside my head. The day was just, I had all these actors in a Humvee, and we were like, just the day was going away, and we didn't do anything. Yeah, that's not a fun day.
It turned out well.
The picture turned out good, yeah.
But you had a
then they had these other wars. I met George Bush that summer when we were cutting it, George Bush the Younger. And I met him at the head of Warner Brothers, Terry Semel. They said, you want to come meet George Bush? He might be the Republican nominee. I said, okay. I said, I thought Terry was a Democrat. Lorenzo said, Terry's an opportunist. So that means they paid both sides of the aisle in an election year. So we go to the house, and there's George Bush and like 5 other people, like Quincy Jones, like 3 other people, and me. And I say, he says, hi, I'm just excited to meet. He wasn't even the nominee yet. I said, I'm going to make a movie, I'm editing a movie that is questioning your father's legacy in Iraq. And far from being in any way given pause by this, he immediately shot back, well, I guess I'm going to have to go back over there, and finish the job. So he was way into that already.
Yeah.
Before 9/11 even happened. Before 9/11 even happened. But I supported it because in making 3, even though I'm a lifelong Democrat, and I've also since come to think that every war since World War II is really just a really stupid idea and the money-making idea for a small group of people. I really supported that war at first because I'd met all these Iraqi people who lived in Detroit for some reason. There was a community of them that lived in Detroit, and we brought them into our film in Arizona, and they were all the Iraqis in our film, and I became friends with all of them. I'm still friends with them. And they said, yeah, please go back to our country and make it into a democracy. So I bought into that. But I now think George Bush the Elder might have been a little smarter about that. When he said, that's a mess, don't do that. I think he might have been right about that. But it was just very exciting to experiment visually. Things you can now do in your phone, like we did with, we did with reversal, we did a bleach bypass. You print the film, it leaves nitrate on the film, giving it that blown out look, which most of the film was shot in. We did Ektachrome, which is film you shoot in a regular still camera, and shot it as reversal stock in the movie camera, which gave it that crazy Alice in Wonderland feeling, which I wanted when they went down the rabbit hole into another land. And the studio freaked out because the lab didn't know how to handle it, and
you can't control
and
it.
you couldn't see George Clooney's eyes, and so we found another lab that saved the day. Again, I repeat, your 10-year-old could do this in their phone now, but we bled over it at the time. And so all that was just very educational to me, and then I came out of that saying, I'm going to do a smaller film and I'm going to be willing to fail. And that was a film called Huckabees. And in many ways I did fail. And then I said, let's not maybe do that again. Because it opened up to, the Museum of Modern Art offered me like a retrospective after I'd only done 3 films. And I said, that just seems like a stupid idea to me. And they said, but we want to start a thing on younger filmmakers. I said, well, if you call it works in progress, which indicates I'm still figuring this out and I still learning what I'm doing and it doesn't seem like I'm a pretentious idiot, then I'll do it. And even then I felt I had to entertain them, because I just felt I didn't deserve to be there. So I had all my friends come, all my filmmaker friends, and Will Ferrell came in as James Lipton from the Actors Studio and interviewed me. So we made fun of the whole thing. So I'd rather anyway. So it did. I was right though. It did initiate an 8-year period of bad luck. I said this is going to be bad, and it was bad. It's like, don't do that. Don't be important. Don't do it in MoMA. Don't do that. And I shouldn't have done that. I got a lifelong membership at MoMA. But I could never have gotten where I am today. That's how life is. That's the craziness of life. You just got to go through it. So those 8 years, delivered me to the person I became when I made The Fighter, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's how it had to go for me.
What did you do in those 8 years? I mean, when you say it was a kind of a failure, in what way?
The film?
Well, yeah.
Well, I mean,
Failure as in it didn't.
I mean, I just was willing to go out there too much. I think if I could do that film again, I could make it more emotional and more relevant and more intense and, you know, make it count more. I think I was terrified. I think that's a very healthy emotion for anybody undertaking a film or many endeavors. It is. I was scared and
of
the film.
Because you were pushing
the film, yeah, it was sort of like the Chinese fortune idea. These detectives are following these two people. You know, you can hire somebody to follow you and tell you about your life, like the guy in the restaurant, right? So that's what it was. And I had all these actors that I wanted, maybe because I'd gotten what I'd wanted and I wasn't able to handle it. I mean, I don't want to psychoanalyze myself because it's boring, but you know, I think I just kind of freaked out. I was having a midlife crisis. I abused marijuana too much to get through it. None of this is in my life today. And I got divorced, and I had to get my bipolar kid into a special school so he would could have a life. And so those were major undertakings during those 8 years. And I couldn't decide. I completely lost my feeling for what films to make or tell.
Really?
Yeah. I think the whole thing just felt overwhelming to me and not simple.
Were you writing, and a two-part question, do you have like 3 or 4 ideas permeating and you see which one kind of gets pregnant, or do you keep notebooks? How do you process your fantasies?
Well, I have to work for a living, you know, so I took writing jobs for a living, and I've always wanted to make a movie about my high school years, and I wrote a high school movie, but they didn't want to make it.
As writer for hire?
Yeah, I took it, but they also were supposed to let me direct it, but then they wouldn't let me direct it, and so I started to fall into a period of doubt.
Yeah.
You see, so it was sort of a dark night of the soul. It was a big Vince Vaughn comedy I was going to do. I do rewrites for hire,
right,
you know, to support
polish.
So I got hired to do this, and then they begged me to direct it, and I should have done it. It would have paid for my divorce. I was an idiot. I should have done it, and instead I overthought it, and it was funny. It was a funny movie, you know. And some people say to me, "No, you weren't meant to make that movie." Don't think about that. I remember going to Wes Anderson's house after Huckabees, and I think directors fall into 2 camps: the deeply self-questioning and self-critical, and the I can do no wrong artist camp.
Oh,
and they both have their pros and cons. I fall into the self-mutilating camp. So I'm at Wes's house, and
where East.
In New York City. And,
so you never lived in LA?
No, I do now. I've lived in LA for about the last 12 years or more, but I moved from New York to Los Angeles because I found better schools for my son there, and then found other schools for other schools. So the younger son. I do have another son. So Wes was just, you know, I love Wes and I love his films, and he's just such a different creature, you know. He goes, I go, I don't know that movie, because I sat next to him at a screening of The Life Aquatic, and I was thinking, wow, this is a catastrophe. You know, and I was sitting right next to him, you know, and I just wanted to tunnel out of the theater, you know. And I don't know, I didn't think it was any more of a catastrophe than Huckabees had been, you know. I mean, I thought, you know, it was an inspired, you know, and then, you know, he said, after, you know, but anyway, I said, don't you feel bad that you spent all that money and it didn't earn the money back, and, you know. And I feel like I should have done it better. And he said, what are you talking about? You made that movie. That's your movie. Which, you know, there's something to be said for that. There's something to be said for that. I tip my hat to him, you know. I mean, he is his own creature, as he's shown very clearly. You know, and I am a great admirer of his. And I would be sitting in the trailer on Three Kings, watching Rushmore, saying, why am I in this godforsaken desert? I look at this charming prep school with Max Fisher. Anyway, that's why I met Jason Schwartzman. And so after that period of wilderness, of writing different scripts and being divorced and taking care of my family, and I made enough of, just when you think you can't go any lower, it can't get any worse. Wait, it can get worse. So I do this movie. Instead of doing the Vince Vaughn movie, I have to say I never know what to expect at these things. I get up here and I'm like, are we really going to talk about all this? I really did not expect to talk about any of this. So I thought we were going to talk about American Hustle, but okay.
We are.
It's okay, no, it's okay. So it's just so unexpected, and I don't know if I'm doing well. Thank you for that. I do appreciate it. Not kidding. So anyway, where was I? The Thing. Oh, so I
Just
don't do
maybe
the
get
big. I
no
don't
worse.
do the big Universal movie. They're building sets. This is before the bubble burst, obviously. After the bubble burst, why would you do this?
Yeah.
Everything, all the money in Hollywood went like this after 2008.
Yeah.
They were like throwing money at me. This is what I mean. I call it. Darren Aronofsky came and sat on my lap at a director's round table because we've known each other over the years. He said, "How's it going, man?" After I did The Fighter, because he was supposed to do The Fighter, and instead he went and made a movie called The Wrestler. And that's a fascinating story.
Yeah,
That whole story is fascinating. So he goes, "How you doing?" He goes, "I love your movie." And I said, "No, I love your movie," which at that time was called Black Swan. And I said, "What happened to you, man? You're just kicking ass and taking names." And he said, "So are you." I go, "But what happened?" He goes to me, he goes, "I got my head out of my ass." So for him, his Huckabees was like The Fountain, the movie. And that's just, you chase this big, windmill, and you're like, this is going to be amazing, and it's going to be fantastic. But inside, you're like, wow, what the fuck am I doing? This is horrifying, And later you learn how to be like, well, this smells like an idea that is more like that. I don't really know so much. You can do it. But it's going to be like Homer Simpson going down a cliff, You ever watch Homer Simpson go down a cliff? It's like, don't. So that's a movie that feels like this, feels like, okay, you could do that. You could make that movie that you're not so sure of. You could say, I'm going to do that, I don't care. Or you could try to find something that we're like, no, I got this. I think we're going to kill. And the things I don't know about, we're going to make choices from our guts. And it's going to be okay. I'm just like, I'm over here now. I'm too terrified of this thing now. And so he said that to me, and instead of doing that big movie that I would have been paid for, which was as I had my head up my ass, that's why I said that, the head up my ass, I've been apologizing to Universal ever since. I still feel bad. I go up to them and I say, I'm so sorry that we spent that money. And she was sweet to me, Donna Langley, who's British, I think, right? Is she British, right? She has an accent.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
Either British or
I don't think it's a pathological one like Amy Adams in American Hustle. She said, no, you weren't meant to make that movie. And I said, oh, so she let me off the hook a little bit. But I then went and made a movie that was Kristen Gore, the vice president's daughter, the former vice president's daughter, the one who was elected and won the popular vote, but then didn't win because of the electoral vote and then this weird thing in Florida. Yeah, we made a movie that was like that election, meaning the experience of the movie was like that election. It just kind of didn't happen. It happened, then it didn't happen, and it was a satire about healthcare and a woman who had a nail in her head that she couldn't get removed. And she couldn't get the nail removed because she couldn't afford the neurosurgery, and she wasn't covered. And it was a very funny script that we wrote, and a financier that was very mysterious to me that I didn't understand. And people told me, they said things to me, and I didn't listen. And we did it anyway. I guess I wasn't ready to stop being Homer Simpson, And so we got shut down 9 times. I mean, like the payroll isn't there. Things that had never happened to me, that I'd never heard of happening to anybody, ever. I'm like in South Carolina. I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean? They're not going to pay everybody, so what's going to happen? These big union sit-downs every Friday, this horrible feeling every Friday. Every Friday. There are these pictures of us, everybody looking in agony. It was with Jake Gyllenhaal, Jessica Biel, Catherine Keener, Tracy Morgan. That never got finished.
Where is it?
Yeah, good question. I don't know. I just, it's just too painful even really to contemplate. So that just got put into some weird stillbirth. And then, I got to be reborn. After I'd been brought to my knees, I got to be reborn and see clearly and come from it. I wrote Sidney Pollack in the last year of his life. Offered me a novel called Silver Linings Playbook that was very personal to me. He said, I don't know how to do this movie, David. If you can write it, maybe we can get you the directing job, but you'll take the job as a writer? I said, yes, I need work. Sidney, please, I need work. I'm sorry, I just can't talk about him. So he gave me the job when I really needed a job, and nobody else would give me a job. So I wrote that script. But I said, I know how to write this script because I have lived this movie in my house. I've had to lock the knife drawer. And then you're saying, wait, what's happening? Why am I locking it? Why did I put a lock on the knife drawer? How did that happen? It happens like very slowly. All of a sudden you're like, and so then you're like, wait a minute, I think he has to go to like a different boarding school. I'm going to do something. So, I lived that. So, and then I speak to Robert De Niro about it. and he had lived it. So, you know, I wrote that script, and then Sidney, I said, what about Harvey Weinstein, you know? Because I made one movie with him called Flirting with Disaster, and I like him, but I just don't understand, you know, if he's going to respect me. He said he wouldn't hire me to direct it. He said, don't worry, me and Anthony Minghella will protect you. I was like, really? You both died? Both of you? Why couldn't just one of you die? I mean, you both died. I couldn't believe it. I was in such a state of shock. I couldn't believe it. And so then I'm just me and Harvey, you know? Like they go away and it's, hi, Harvey, hi. And then he goes, well, I don't really have the money to make this right now. I don't want to make it right now. So I go, oh, really? I think this could be a good movie. Really? Yeah, I don't know. Okay. So then Mark Wahlberg, God bless him, Darren Aronofsky came and went. Andrew Dominic came and went. Other directors came and went on The Fighter. You know, after being the first string choice, I was now the fourth string choice. Okay? That's okay, man. That's life. That's Major League Baseball. You know, you makes you a better person and you come back stronger. You know what I'm saying? It made me a better filmmaker. You know, and so I was the fourth string choice. Mark Wahlberg, who I was the one hiring him for 3 years, 3 pictures. I got him elevated after Boogie Nights. I showed people that he could do comedy, you know, and I love the guy. You know, in Huckabees, nobody thought he could do comedy. I believe in him 100%. He saved me. So my karma came back around, and he said, "Listen, I'm gonna." And he fought for me. You know, because there were people who said that we don't think he can do it or he should do it. You know, because your stock goes down, your stock goes down. So. That was a movie I wouldn't have done 10 years ago when I did Huckabees. I'd go, what's interesting about this? There's no existential detectives in it. There's no, you know, there's no weird meta, you know, psychology or like, you know, metaphysics in it. You know, it's just too simple. And, you know, now it was like, you know, oh, why don't you try to really get intimate with these people and tell it cinematically and make it propulsive, and make it emotional and dig down and feel it sweaty and make it just like you come out of the theater and try to say, holy shit. Good luck trying to do that. You know.
Do you think family structure is maybe really, really important to you in storytelling as a way of telling stories?
It seems to be, you know, and I'm going to do a big one, I think, now. You know, it seems to be like a fantastic thing. I don't know why. I don't know why. It's a crucible, and they have a thing going on. And there's many different adjunct wings, right? There's like the divorcees, or there's the other family, or there's the forgotten family, or there's the rival family. There's like, it's just interesting to me. It's just like a weird constellation, and it's a great crucible. So yeah, I like it.
Maybe we could use this time, because the last category was American Hustle, which is, you know,
American Hustle.
I mean, inspiration. And I'll tell you what the categories were. What they want to know: inspiration for the project, development, costume, soundtrack, challenges, 20 minutes. And we could do it as a. Who would like to ask?
We'll get it in.
Who would like to ask the first question?
This is how filming day, isn't it? Right? You have to shoot this big emotional scene, and you spend the morning like, look at the light on this glass. Look at that. Look at that. Then like at 4 o'clock, you're like, why did you spend that time on that fucking glass? Okay, so you come in, you tell them you're divorced when you die. Okay, go. Okay, we got it. We got it. Let's do this. We did it. And that's how, it's insane how often that happens. And sometimes it works to the advantage of the film. Yeah. But now, you know what I do now? I work the day out with Shelley Ziegler, my AD for the last 3 movies, who's from Baltimore, a wonderful AD, and she and I work the day backwards. Okay, so there's no mystery in it. Right? It's like, you know, they can send someone to the moon, that we should be able to do this, right? That's what I would say about my monitor, too. Because I like to be right next to the camera, the Steadicam. I don't want to be at Video Village, so I'm right there with the actors. And we have designed the shots so that they're happening on scripted beats. So, and we try to do them in one or as much of one. So the monitor they kept giving me had really horrible reception. So it would be like I was flying blind, just kind of eyeballing it as we're doing it. And I'd complain, you know, so that department could hear me. I'd go, wow, I can't believe the director can't see what he's shooting. But, you know, I know that's an unreasonable request. I know I'm a crazy demanding person. So I say that, and then finally they kept changing them, and it still didn't work. And then this was my favorite thing. I'd go, you know, it's a funny thing, because I get National Geographic, and they put a rover on Mars, and you get pristine images. I have them in my house right now, from Mars. And how far is that? Does anybody know how far away? I mean, that's really far away. I mean, that's very far away. And I'm standing right next to the transmitter. This is the transmitter right here. I'm standing right next to it. And finally, these things go, you don't yell, you just say it like that. And everybody's laughing, and the person in the department is going, I got it. So they finally found a guy named Wolf in Santa Monica, who had, it's like in Pulp Fiction, Mr. Wolf. He had this analog technology. I'm like, why don't you ask? I don't care if it's digital or analog. Like, I'm the analog guy. It's this big, heavy thing that is as clear as day, all day long. And it's not digital, so I don't know how to explain it. Wolf, a big, heavy thing.
Question.
What is your relationship with your cinematographers? Like, you mentioned the one on Three Kings, but like through your various films, and how do you work shots with him, and how much does he do, and how much you do in the lighting, like this kind of relationship?
Well, it's a great partnership, isn't it? It's a marriage, so it's very, very important that it be a good marriage. I had a couple of ones that weren't so good, and I just can't do it. I say to everybody on every film, this is my life. It's not like my life's over there and then this movie's over here. This is my life. I spend a lot of my life doing this, and this means everything to me. So love it, and love me, and I'll love you, and let's be passionate. And if that's not for you, God bless you, go make another movie. But I can't even look up at a grip who wishes he was watching basketball or taking a shit. I just can't do it. I gotta have everybody who's happy to be there, and if you're not, so you have those conversations with people from the heart, like you do with your family, and people hear you when you say it like that. And you say, look in my eyes, I can't do it, man, I can't do it. It'll kill me. It'll be really sad, you'll leave the movie. So you have to have a heart-to-heart with them. Now, after the first 3 movies or 4 movies, I realized what was happening. See, because I'm a slow learner and a late bloomer. I realized that they were using all the time to light. It took me 4 movies to realize that, right? Because I just I'm not Mr. Technology, So I was like, wait a minute, after 4 movies, right? So I said, here's what's going to happen. You're not going to use 3 hours to light, and I have a half hour to shoot the scene. That's going to be the reverse of that. Okay, you're going to have a half hour to light the scene, and I'm going to have 3 hours to light it and to shoot it. And if you don't like that, then let's not do the movie. And all the DPs who have come on are wonderful artists in their own right. Hoyte van Hoytema was my very own, I called him my very own Harris Savides. God bless Harris Savides, he passed away. But I grew him, he was a miracle, and then he got swiped immediately, by everybody and their brother. He was this jolly artist from Sweden. And he's a jolly artist who has the soul of an artist, the heart of an artist. He sees and bleeds the film. He loves it, has great passion, has a great opinion, and defers. It's very important that he defers. I remember, and sometimes I'll have to defer. When he's really going to go to the mat for something, okay, I'm going to give you this one. But let's not make it a whole thing. Because I even remember hearing stories from David Fincher telling me, Darius Kanji, 12 days into the Panic Room, David Fincher said, I just fired Darius Kanji. I said, really, why? He said, because we had 3 months to prepare a movie that takes place in one house. And we prepared it. And I just don't have the time every day to listen to his ideas. You know what I mean? Like to argue with him about his ideas. I just can't do it. Or even I remember Scorsese telling me, I said, even you? Even you? This guy breaks even. This guy, Bob Richardson, the greatest of the great. There's Marty having to sit there and listen to Bob's idea, which is okay, that's cool to a point, but at a certain point it has to be it's got to be a quick process. Mm-hmm. And here's what I say half the time. You know what? In the time that we're taking to argue this, I'll say this to an actor too, we could have shot it both ways. Let's just shoot it both ways. And then you come to the edit room, and guess what? It's not a trick. Because half the time I'm like, thank God they did that, because my way sucked. Thank God. So I'll come to the editing room, and so it's for real. Anybody's welcome in our editing room. Bradley Cooper, Hoyte van Hoytema, Lena Sandgren, another Swede we got on this movie. Gus Van Sant gave me Lena Sandgren. And the operators are very important. Jeff Haley, amazing operator. An underachiever. I said, you just keep underachieving, Jeff. He's really meant to be a director. But I said, no, you're a great operator. Because it's like having another filmmaker on your set. so many of Dave Thompson, who, the operators are, because you live and die with the Steadicam. I shoot everything on Steadicam. I don't like dollies and big equipment. I don't like cumbersome things. We'll design the shots on moments, but it's so much easier for me with the Steadicam.
To adjust.
And Hoyte van, and also Masa Takeyanagi is also great. He was the DP on Silver Linings.
Next question.
Also Patrick Murray, the gaffer, very important. We gave him an award on our movie because the way we light simply from the ceiling and through every window, so it's a nice, soft, beautiful light, and everybody can go almost everywhere. Almost everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
That means if they go somewhere, there's Patrick Murray with a boom with a china ball.
Mm-hmm.
And then Patrick, we don't cut. Patrick will come in right there, nice soft light right there, right next to the camera. And we never called cut. And they made a statue for Patrick. And the guy holding us the thing, we gave it to him at the end of the movie.
Next question. Anybody? So.
At the BAFTA screening, you talked about that you do, you basically shoot the scene till you run out of film in the camera. Can you talk about how you do that?
Well, once it's game on, I don't like to interrupt the game. You know what I mean? I mean, if you have to, you have to. Sometimes, obviously, you have to. If something, but I prefer that everybody, and De Niro and everybody quite liked it. There's a lot of people who quite like it. He said it's very immediate. It gives a great immediacy. Nobody ever goes back to their trailers. If I have two conversations with you, one about baseball and another one about your girlfriend or your something, I'm like, then I go, what is happening? Why are we not shooting?
Mm-hmm.
I had two conversations with him. Right, one about his wife and one about the New York Yankees, and I don't want to have a third conversation. So we have to be shooting because that's shoot. So, I'll shoot the rehearsal, and so let them get. It also makes it less precious. I want everybody to know it's not like some crystal china thing. It has to be go do it perfect. I don't want them to feel that way. I want them to feel free to do it and do it and do it and get free and get into it. And it starts to get juicy, and they go into a trance. And Christian Bale calls it a waking dream. And I start to see that everybody starts trancing out. Jennifer Lawrence calls it's like she's high. And I can tell when the high is happening. Everybody's high. Everybody's living this crazy high of this moment. And nobody's breaking it. I'm not going to break it.
So you turn around really quickly between takes?
We just keep shooting it. We'll just keep doing it.
And does your AD then kind of go, look, we're up?
I forgot to tell you how we do the day. No, the way we do the day is, so I go, Shelley and I'll say, so Shelley, so to finish this day and do this much today, how do we do that? All right, so we work backwards. You have to finish this by 5 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
You have to finish this by 4:30. You have to do this by 3:30. I go, So at any time, science, that's what we did. Science, Wolf. That was the digression. So science, so we've planned the day. So at any moment I go, Shelley, how are we doing? And she's like, but like, I like, it's like any sport. You can fall behind and you can make up massive yardage. I like that. It's exciting. It's enthralling. I love taking bets with the AD department. I'm like, well, you think we're losing the day? Watch this. Watch this. Watch this. Watch this. It's going to be good, too. Watch this. And I love the cast being in on it, too. The producers are despairing. I love it because it makes for great bonhomie and team spirit. I'm like, right? We're going to kill this right now, right? We're going to do it right now. Watch this. We're going to make. It's not going to be in the movie, is it? And I'll come up with scenes and I'll say, it can either not be in the movie or you get 2 takes. And most of my actors have the spirit of like, fuck, let's do 2 takes. So Jennifer Lawrence, they're like, that's not in the script, singing "Live and Let Die." Where's that even going to go in the movie? I go, Shelley, come on, Shelley, just 20 minutes. Just give me 20 minutes. Or Melissa Leo singing with Christian Bale in The Fighter. Not in the script. The producers would go, this is weird. What is this weird scene where they're singing a weird Bee Gees song? Why? I don't get it. She found him in a crack house and now they're singing a Bee Gees song? And I'm like, well, see, that's the beautiful thing of like, that's their song of like their beautiful thing of how they get together. The producer's just like, I'm like, just 20 minutes. And the actors learned it. So they were ready, like a loaded gun. They go, they don't even know the song. And Christian and Melissa go, no, we know the song. So they get, and both, it's interesting because in both movies, music, I like to use music that people would mock, okay? So like the Bee Gees song, If I Started a Joke, the Bee Gees have no irony in them. So they're pure emotion. And I like that. And I will embrace that. And when you put that in the movie, it starts off, and maybe people at first think it's funny, but in about 2 minutes, they're not going to think it's so funny. In 2 minutes, they might be crying. I like that. And so it's like opera, you know, because that also means that some other cool filmmaker isn't going to have used the song. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Like, they're like that.
It's not cool.
They're like that doo-doo song. That's not cool. That's a doo-doo song. I started a joke. You know, or this one in this movie. How can you mend a broken heart? How can a loser ever win? You know, but you do this wonderful sequence avails itself to you of this heartbreak unfolding before your eyes of Jennifer Lawrence and Amy Adams and Christian Bale, and you know, and it's all happening at the same time while Jeremy Renner is saying, we are going to rebuild our economy, and he's being so hopeful, and it's so heartbreaking. That's why I made the movie, was for those characters and that heartbreak. Because in real life, that real guy that Christian Bale did, who looked like that, did fall in love with that mayor. And he did break his heart that he took that mayor down. And that mayor was a good guy. And the FBI guys who I met, the real guys, they said, yeah, he was a good guy, that mayor. Yeah. Now, he probably clipped a nickel and he shouldn't have, but he wanted to help his fucking town. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, it wasn't because he just wanted to clip. There's guys who just want to clip a nickel, and then there's guys who are like, I want to put all my people to work, and I can put everybody to work. I'm going to put a couple nickels in my pocket, but everybody's going to get jobs. You know, so that was real. And then I get my cousin Richie and all my family members who work at JFK. What?
Isn't that called capitalism?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Do you always choose your own music?
A lot. I have great help. We have a great team. Sue Jacobs is our music supervisor, and 4 or 5 films deep. Only credited on the last.
Where did the Duke Ellington reference come from?
That's my favorite. You know, that's
Jeeps Blues.
Yes, you have great music and people in your hard drive, and you pull them out like secret weapons when you need them. And I love that piece of music, which then, of course, says everything about those 2 characters. Duke Ellington, a creation of his own elegance, a butler's son, who became the avatar of elegance and swagger and joy. So these 2 characters at this party, and he died in 1974 when I said they met. So their love affair became paramount to me. Because everybody looks at this, it was a procedural picture. And I go, but wait, what's the real thing? The real thing is these people were in love with each other. That's important. They're not just committing crimes, they're in love with each other.
You chose Jeeps Blues from an album where actually the track that everybody normally talks about is the big raving diminuendo and crescendo in blue with Paul Gonsalves. You know, the Jeeps Blues, and I heard it straight away. I thought, Jeeps Blues, well, that's an obscure one. You know, and that they both kind of related to Jeeps Blues, and they never mentioned the other track.
Tell them about that festival.
Well, it's a Newport Jazz Festival. It's at
56.
56. Ellington makes his comeback from the wilderness.
He's been displaced by the beboppers.
Yeah.
So he's old news.
And he gets on stage, and he's doing a gig. It's over for him, basically, and they end up doing this number called Diminuendo Crescendo in Blue, which he wrote in the 40s. And another drummer from the Count Basie band was watching in the wings, and he rolled up his program, and they start doing this thing, and he starts whacking the wooden bandstand on the offbeat with his rolled up program, and he gets the band going. And on the recording, which is live, obviously, you can hear this amazing build-up of the audience, where he gets almost like slightly hysterical, and the guy who does the solo is supposed to play 2 choruses, and he does 28. He just doesn't stop. He's a heroin addict. By the way, you know, and they just keep going, go, 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 keep going, and the audience is going nuts. And so this is the track that they reference is from this concert. So
it's magnificent, because that's what people live for.
Yeah.
So these guys lived for that. And she says, Duke Ellington saved my life many times. He goes, I bet nobody here knows that Duke Ellington died or cares. She goes, well, I care. He saved my life many times. There they go. They both held the same life raft. With Duke Ellington, they know who he is. He saved their life. They're in love. All right?
Next question. There was somebody at the back who had a hand kind of waving. Okay, sir.
Are you still writing in the same way with your latest film? You spoke briefly before about how you speaking to a dictaphone, and then do you say you bounce off actors? Do you have a script editor? How do you work through the process of the script?
Well, I just keep telling the story to anybody who will listen. You know, you have to find good listeners, and that means they can't start getting lippy. You know, sometimes they get lippy, and it's like coitus interruptus. You know what I'm saying? You know, and you're like, no, shut up. You know what I mean? Like you know, I got my thing. If I get going, just shut up. The problem is if I can't get going. You know what I'm saying? So you're here to help me get going. And you get to sit here and listen to me while I say all this, you know. And so it's a friend, it's a wife, it's an actor, because I aspire to create roles that are worthy of my actor. So if I'm talking to Jennifer or Bradley, any of them, Amy, great ideas will come to me because I want them to feel excited. I want them to do it all. I want to have a range this big. I left Three Kings and I go, that's a good movie, but I didn't give George Clooney enough of a range. I should have created more range for him. That was a beginner's mistake. I got to create the range where I can see all of them. I want to see her when she's raw and in her curlers and she's quivering and shaking and falling apart. And I want to see her when she's steely and she's hard as nails. And I want to see her when she's sensual and glamorous and in love and all that stuff.
How precious are you about hanging on to the, let's say, Quentin just blew a major fuse or two and is threatening to kill half the world because people read his script. Do you keep it close to you?
I like that he did that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, it hasn't turned out so good for him. I mean, well, I don't know, he's bulletproof. I mean, he's Quentin. And that's how I feel about him.
He's what?
I feel he's the fucking man. I mean, I have a lot of respect for him. I mean, Inglourious Basterds, to me, I mean, to everything, I just think I have mad respect for him and affection for him. So it doesn't matter what he does. And guess who else is in his class? Nobody, as far as I'm concerned, who can do what he does like he does it. Anyway, so God bless him. So at first I was going to say, because it wasn't good that he did that, because it didn't matter. It's good. People should be respectful. Even when I tell someone an idea, you know, ideas are so stealable. Mm-hmm. They're so infectious. To certain ideas, you have to be very protective about it. I like that he did that to those agents. You know, people should. I like when people keep their word. I get off on keeping my word. I get off on knowing things that I'm going to take to my grave. You know, and I go home and even to my wife, I'm like, wow, I heard this insane thing from Bradley Cooper today. I can't believe it. No, you can't tell her. And he goes to me, did you ever tell anybody that? And I go, nope. Not one person. And I like that. That's a good feeling. So I think it's good that Quentin is inculcating that feeling. So no, I'm not precious about it in terms of like, I don't know, yeah, I guess that means I am precious about it. I don't know what that means.
I mean,
you want to protect it. You want to, it's a special thing. That's why I like events like this, organizations like this, film festivals, awards. They all make special, like the setting of a jewel, cinema. So it isn't just a thing on your phone that you can wipe your butt with, like kids growing up saying, oh, it's a movie, yeah, it's a movie. Yeah, I made that movie in my backyard. But no, hold on, wait for it. Wait, you gotta wait online. You're lucky if you get in, like I grew up with it, right? Mm-hmm. You know, all that. It's special. You know, I think treating a script like that is special. Mm-hmm. You know, I think it makes it special. It should be treated like plutonium. Plutonium. It's creative. It's special. It's plutonium. It's magic. Everybody should treat the magic very carefully.
Yeah.
You know, then when you're all together in the magic boat, everybody knows you're in the magic boat together. And then you're just you're all in it together.
Yeah. We've got time for a couple more. Anybody? Any women would like to ask a question, perhaps? Madam.
Well, it's just a bit in the vein of being precious about your script or respecting it. You clearly sound very fluid about what you allow it to be with the actors. But I wonder if there's an image when you are talking it through when you first say it into dictaphone, if there's an image that comes to you about a scene that you have to recreate when you come to do it.
Yes.
And that if you don't, it's always a loss.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
No, there's lots of things. There are phrases and words that you will not let change. Because there are images that you must get. Sometimes you're wrong, but sometimes you must get it. I have one right now for a new movie. I have two of them. They both could make me cry. I don't know where they're going to fit in the story. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like Jennifer with the marigolds. I learned that over here. we call them cleaning gloves. But you know, that just to me was like when that came to me, I was like, that's the shit, and that's the truth of her person. That's her declaration of independence. I love powerful women. I love unpredictable, powerful women, and who hand men their ass. And I know many of them. So I thought that's her declaration of independence. Sometimes she says it's very hard for her to change. So that fit right in there. Change is hard for her. Many people will go to their grave before they dare to change. You know, so she was suffering that way, and then she sang that song and was willing to kill her husband, then she was able to change. You know? So that found its place. Yes, those images are very special, aren't they, when you have those images? You don't know where it's going to go. There's all that trust and intuition, right? And hopefully this image will show me why it's here. That's the magic. It's going to show me why it's here.
Thank you. I just wondered about your approach to comedy and whether that has changed over the years or whether that's something that changes from film to film. How do you incorporate the comedic into your films?
Mostly, it's from, I think Raging Bull is one of the funniest movies I ever saw. So mostly to me, until the third act, I cannot watch the third act. I can watch the first 2 acts repeatedly, but the third act just guts me. The same thing about Casino. It just is like you just gutted me. I can't do it. So maybe once I could do it. But I think something that's real is funny and heartbreaking. It just is this thing. It's so real. If someone is really real. But then you also have to know which way you're kind of, you don't want people laughing when you don't want them laughing, right? So sometimes you have to know which way you're leaning. So maybe a moment will start off. I like people being destabilized. You're going to see that you think you know who Bradley Cooper is. You think you know who Robert De Niro is. You think you know who Amy Adams is. You think Christian Bale, Jennifer Lawrence. And the movie comes up and people are like, what? How's that going to work? And so you have to surrender to those people. I've subverted your expectations. You must give yourself over to our magic narrative, okay? And part of that also is what you're talking about. Because if the rhythm is not the rhythm has to be expected enough that people feel like it's a song they can be with, right? Unless you really want to make experimental cinema, right? It's a song they can be with, but not so it's that familiar in the language, but it can lean out of that so that people are like, wait, I'm laughing, and then it can suddenly mug them. Because I think the art of show business, the art of cinema and of storytelling, even if it's to my 3-year-old, is and then Mowgli climbed the tree, and up in the tree, see, he doesn't know what's going to happen. So that's what we're doing with every single moment in a movie. So this woman, this can be funny, it's real, she's just being funny, like Jennifer arguing with Christian Bale, and then all of a sudden it's not funny. And that can happen organically. So I try to dial into that, and there's moments that I think will be fantastic because they'll be funny, and some that I just think will be very, very heartbreaking when you get there eventually.
A lot of the time now when I read a really good book or I watch a really good film, my temptation is to quit about 10 pages short of the ending or turn the film off when I know that when I start to hear that or smell the ending coming, because to me they've always been a kind of an artificial necessity, because the theatrical convention is we have to somehow land the plane. And it has to be neat, and the landing strip, as you said, is very narrow, and et cetera, et cetera. But often you have to sacrifice a lot of your rhythm and a lot of your energy to stop the plane. Do you feel the pressure of that sometimes? Because when you're in full flow, without the kind of responsibility, you personally, I love your films, when you're just going and it's a bit bonkers, and you kind of go, I really don't give a fuck what the plot's happening now because I'm so interested in this family and the secret language that they're using and the fun you're having with the nuance of the ensemble and all of that. So in a sense, I care less about plot, except, of course, it needs to be there. So the ending bit is, it's a challenge. How do you deal with that?
It's like everything in filmmaking, it's an art. That my editors and I, we discover that. How many times have we ended movies different ways? We could show you 20 different endings, right? Mm-hmm. So it's an art. I kind of like it. It's very exciting to me, all of it. How are we going to land this plane? What's the best landing? You know what I'm saying? Sure. And I love that you have one. We have bake-offs. I call them bake-offs. Because we have debates in our edit. I love healthy debate. We have 2 or 3 editors, and I go from room to room and edit with each of them. And sometimes we have different camps, have different positions on a scene. And I'll say, Jay, just the same. Please, just do it for me. Please, just cut it for me in this way. I know you don't like that idea, Jay, but please, I'm asking you nicely. Just please do it. All right, so Jay will cut it, and I know Jay stands in protest. And then Jay will do his version of the scene, right? And then we'll have a bake-off. And very often what happens is we'll end up switching positions. I go, Jay, I'm fighting for your cut of the fucking scene. What are you talking about? He goes, I don't believe in that cut anymore.
Yeah.
I believe in your cut now. I go, no, you were right the first time, Jay. You were right. Stay with what you had. And eventually you forget who had what position.
Yeah.
But that happens all the way through the ending of the film. So you're having endings. And it's unknown and it's a challenge, but it's very exciting. Because you don't, it's formidable, and I love it, having to figure it out.
I mean, as a Slash, as you are, writer, director, editor, whatever, do you have three personas? Because the writer is pretty protective, and like, this is my vision. But then you negotiate with a bunch of people, and then in the little dark rooms that you talk about, you can become a bit of a slasher, right? All the things you were fighting for and you would have killed people for before, you kind of go, you're dead, you're gone, 3 endings, whatever, fuck you, I'm out of here, So it's a kind of a weird, quite a big transition each time, isn't it? Or do you find it seamless?
No, it keeps changing, We love it though, we have a submarine, 3 movies deep, we have a submarine of people and we love running our submarine, you know what I'm saying? It's very nice, with all the bells and whistles, and it's nice when you have a seafaring group, that loves to. They know how to. Here we go, and but you do change. Yeah, you end up having to. Yeah, it's remarkable how it happens. You wake up one day and you go, "How could I have not had this scene in the movie? How is that even possible?" And Bradley Cooper is an extraordinary collaborator who has been a producer on the last 2 films and sits in the editing room quite a lot. And has great, smart opinions. And we'll look at each other and say, how is that conceivable, that Robert De Niro crying on the bed to you was not in the movie? But 3 months ago, we thought it was just full of shit and it didn't belong in the movie. I don't understand it. Now nobody thinks that. Likewise, here, this thing, what is this thing still doing in the movie? How could this still be? How much better is the movie without this thing that we thought treated like the Shroud of Turin for 3 months? And now it doesn't belong here. So anyway, yeah, it all happens. It's all a wonderful adventure. And is that it? Are we going to wrap it up?
Well, there's a little footnote here, which I think would be important for people here, which is, first of all,
we still haven't talked all about American Hustle. That's okay, a little bit. I can still, they'll pay for my hotel still, won't they?
Yeah. I think that the question was, do you have any advice for younger filmmakers?
I think we've done it a bunch of times up here. I'm sorry you had to listen to the sound of my voice for so long, and thank you for listening to me. I know this room is filled with many esteemed people, and I very much appreciate you coming out to make the cinema feel special together with me. And I would just say, what I could say to me then is just cut the bullshit, just tell the story, tell it to me right now. There's a high school in the Bronx, the first public high school for cinema, that I helped begin 12 years ago. Meaning it's a public high school, you can compete to get into it, the whole curriculum is based around cinema, like the High School for the Performing Arts. And it's been my privilege to drag everybody, perhaps even you, to come there and speak to these kids and to also help them raise money and stuff. And that's all I say to them. I say, tell me a story, tell it to me right now. I make them tell me the story, all right? And and they're stumbling around like a blind man in a snowstorm, and so I'll go, great, and that'll be a disaster, and then I'll go through a couple of kids and I'll come back, okay, tell me that story again, and I'll make them tell me that story a whole bunch of times. Just do it from the, I don't know, what do you want to know? There's so many different kinds of movies. All I'm going to tell you is do it from the gut, connect with people, don't be precious, connect in a raw way. Who cares? That's what I do. I don't know. Sorry, I don't mean to presume to know anything. I don't know. Good luck to you. I'll tell you what I can tell you 2 quick stories. I bartended both for Martin Scorsese and Mike Nichols. I was at Jacqueline Onassis' house as a bartender, and Mike Nichols came up to me because he was her friend and date, and said, I used to do what you're doing. And I said, I would like to do what you're doing. And he took his drink and said, good luck. So that's my answer to filmmakers. And the other thing is, when I was at the premiere of Goodfellas at the Museum of Modern Art, and I was serving drinks, and Scorsese came up for a drink, and I said, I can't wait to see this film. I hope I can sneak in tonight. I'm trying to make these short films and do what you're going to do. And he looked at me and he said, I'll have a vodka on the rocks. So thank you for coming out. Thank you, Mike.
My pleasure.